Welcome back, everybody. Just Mike here. Anyway, today we're working on that clock again. It runs beautifully. Gongs just fine. Everything else, it might run 1 hour. It might run 10 hours. And then it all of a sudden stops. Now, this movement in this clock, when I was working on it, I went ahead and just blew it out, oiled it, and I could see where someone's already oiled it. I know that, pretty sure that clock has fallen off the wall. Not that I think that's what's wrong with it now, because we got the case repaired where it needed to be repaired. I'm kind of thinking that one of the bushings, or maybe more, might be bad. I will admit I didn't really show it in the last video, but I did move them around. I could see a couple of them just barely moving. I'm going to be looking on the time side because I don't think it's on the gong side. The minute hand, like right now, it's stopped. That minute hand doesn't make any difference where it is. The clock will stop. It could have just gonged and all of a sudden it'll stop. It could be over on the quarter after and it'll stop. Sometimes when you restart the pendulum, the clock will not run. Other times it might run for another 2 to 10 hours or more. So that's why I'm thinking there's a worn bushing in this clock. And so I'm going to take it down, and I'm going to already have the movement out, because if you watch the first video, you'll see where I took the movement out and whatnot, and there's no use showing that again. But I will show you something on this clock, because I never knew, I've never had one before, but on that one, the pendulum's inside that box there. Well, how do you get that clock to start ticking? Do you pull the clock at an angle, then get the case to move it? That's not the way to do it, and I'll show you how. So I have fat fingers, but up just underneath the case, there's an opening. My fingers might be able to fit in there. I can make it fit, but I'm not gonna. Anyway, shouldn't use a screwdriver, but you're not poking the case, you're poking the inside. Maybe a wood skewer or whatever would be better. You can see the pendulum rod, and you just hit it, and it'll start ticking, which I ain't hit it enough to keep it ticking, we'll say. So there it is, going back and forth. There's no guarantee. This clock might just take off and start running again, or it might not. It does have a nice sound. So we got 1 o'clock. That's boring. Here's 2 o'clock. So still, like I say, it's a very nice clock. I am really happy with it, except now I'm not happy because it won't keep running. Let me check out the bushings on this clock. I've got the movement out, and looking at it, this side would be the time side. This side would be the strike side. Moving my time side gear, that the main spring, we'll call it. It's not spring, it's where the chain goes on. You'd rock this back and forth. Because this is an 8-day, 8 days are very temperamental with any slop whatsoever. Sometimes they'll run even beyond slop. Sometimes they don't. This here has very little slop. Here I've used a permanent marker to mark what I think, well, not that I think, I know it wiggles. On the other side, This is the time side. This is the gong side. So here on the gong side, I've got one marked right there, and I have one more marked right back here. Let's see if I can do a close-up and remember to pull it back again. So it does have a little movement. This one here had a little movement. Let's see if that's the same. Nope. I was wondering if it's the same one that went through to the other side. This one does not. The other one's on where the Pac-Man is. And that's why I say the gong side I'm not as worried about. So let's take a look at the time side. 1, 2, 3. We have 3 in a row. Let's see if they're on this side. That one looks good. Where's that other one at? It's right there. Oh, that's this one here goes to the hands. Then the one above it, it has just a touch of movement, but it's not what I'm going to even touch. And then the one on the other end of this is the one that possibly needs to be changed too. So what we're going to do is strip this movement. We're going to take pictures first, and so we can get it back together again. So I got all my pictures taken. The nuts are right here to take the frame apart, and so that's why I went ahead and took my pictures with the hour pipe down, because that's how I'm going to be putting this back together again. So the first thing I plan on doing is removing all of this here in order for me to be done with this side. So I can put my fancy dancy feet on here, turn around like this, and get it ready to take off the rest of it. I think the first thing I'm going to do, is I don't want to destroy it, is I'd like to take this off in order to not ruin it one way or another. And by the looks of it, it's just a couple of screws, so it'll, let's say, fall right out. They really got that one in there tight. Let's see if this screwdriver will fit. I'm just making sure everything wants to move freely. So we got this off, but we're going to have to take this one off next because it's kind of like counterbalancing over the snail and whatnot. This has a permanent riser on there. I'm almost wondering at one time if they were having a problem with this lifting. This does have grease on here to help it move around. So we got that spring wire here that's lifting on here to keep it with tension, I guess we'll call it. And when I put this plate back together again, I'm going to slide that in, or the plate over all of this. And actually it's not the plate, it'd be this lever. I'm going to take the E-clip out right now, and then that'll free it, so I have to remember to hook it back in. When I go to put this back on. And this one has nothing there except the E-clip inside here. Trying to turn that so I can get it out. Get that Pac-Man turned. So let me put the feet on, then we'll go ahead and pull these off. Then screw that. This one here frees right up. Actually, I can't. I have to take off something else first. So let's just snug this back up into place. These have got to come off. They have an E-clip there. By the looks of it, these have got screws on them too. So let's take our first one off. That shows you it had pressure on it. And they're the same length, because this is on the inside and this is on the outside. Well, this one here's on the outside and this is on the inside, so it's the idea of getting them up with those. That one's freed. So is there anything else about these? I guess these need to be put in as you're putting the frame together. When it comes to the spring, they both, one holds on to its neighbor's rod, and the neighbor's rod, the spring comes over and holds on to it, so they're kind of shared when it comes to those. Otherwise, these don't move, they don't pop out. So that's going to be part of this frame thing, and possibly getting those springs to help me out, I guess we'll put it that way. So let me get a socket that's going to fit these. This here does have old oil that's actually really dirty. So because we have this thing apart, we're going to go ahead and clean this thing also, and then we'll fix these that I have marked and put it back together again. So while I'm here to make sure I have the right ones or not, I got my plate here showing me which ones I need to see about fitting. So I got my bushings here, and I'm getting shy on them. There's lots of bushings, but there's only certain ones that you mainly use. So let me get my tweezers out and try to set them and see if I got the right bushings. So let's go ahead and take these hammers out first, so it's not so confusing. This hammer wraps around the first arm so it holds it up in place. You see it's wrapped around, possibly on this one too. So anyway, see if I can get you a little closer. I put the bushing on here, on here, on here, and back here. That way I know those fit, and going by the marks on my plate, those are the ones I want to go ahead and change. So my bushing I set down there, I put this on there. I'm not doing any measurement. I can see that this here should be the right one, but anytime I start drilling the hole, when I get closer to the end, I start pre-fitting, because if you don't have the exact brand to these, then you're going to end up drilling the hole too big, and that's the last thing you want to do. And if you end up doing it too big, you're either going to have to get a bigger bushing but keep the center the same, or you're going to have to ping this, which is stretching the brass to tighten up around your bushing, which isn't always a good thing. So this is the outside of the plate. You always want to go to the inside of the plate and start your cutting. You try to hold this as level as possible. And if this already has, which I think it does, has a bushing in it already, if that bushing that's already in there is too big, maybe you're going to be able to just fit this bushing inside the other bushing. Or if you happen to have a bushing the same size, you might be able to just pop that one out and pop a new one in. So realistically, I just popped out the old bushing that was in there. These bushings have an oil cup in them, and you want that oil cup set down so it goes to the front of the plate. So I was able to tap it down to side, or so it's level. And I wouldn't care if it's stuck up or not. Now this one's just barely sticking up, which realistically it's smooth too. If it was sticking way up, which it shouldn't, because this should be flush with this, because I set it on here and tapped it down, and so this will go down to my piece of metal here. But like I say, it's the same thickness because it's smooth across. And of course, when you put these plates together, you're going to make sure that you have end shake, which is up and down, because you don't want this too tight. If it's too tight, then your clock's not going to run. So let me get these others changed and be right back. Well, I got all the new ones in. I tested it and everything seems to turn. And so what I need to do now is get my levers on here so I can check to see if my warning pin's in the right spot for the gong to do its job like it used to. So when you're putting these levers back on, you got to make sure that they're on right. Watch your pictures, because they're a little bit different, and one has to go on to one of them and one has to go on the other one. They're not exactly the same. And I see I still got a little bit of adjusting to do to get them separated. So I went ahead and got it back together, and like I showed, I do believe in the first video, the snail was off just a little bit, and I got it in the time, which I already put this back together this far and forgot about not videoing it. Anyway, this here is ready to go in. Put it in the pivot area. Get this one in too, and get the screw holes lined up. I'm going to put the screws in and see if we have to adjust this again or if this is going to be okay. This here would be their slip clutch. It's actually kind of like a dial, but it is unique and it does work. You just have to get used to it, I guess is the way I'll put it, because I'm not used to something like that. And of course this has a slot up and down, so when you go to put your screws in, snug them up lightly and then check out to make sure this thing can tick and the wheel actually turn. That was just a little bit of messing around with it. I noticed this here pin that comes through this plate. This here is pushed clear up against it, and this is the one I was able to adjust up and down. You have it too far, you can get to tick, but if you have it too close to the wheel in there, then it freezes up. It doesn't want to tick, to where if you raise this up a little bit to get that off of the gear, then it ticks okay. And this time I'm putting the chain in. I was able to roll it over so the chain will actually go on this way. Then I have to hold it level so I can finish turning them over. Get the chain and give it a 50-50 split so it has even weight on both ends of the chain. And now I'm ready to get the clock box, put this in there, and see how I need to adjust my wires on the gong rods. And the thing is, this has to be installed, and then the gong rods have to be installed. And so I got this, let's say, close, but I'm going to bend my wires just a little bit one way or another in order for it to sound nice. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to install the chains first. I have it laying on the desk. And I just drop my chains in, get them started. We have to watch we don't get the chains crossed. Finish letting the chains drop through as you're bringing the movement in. You have that setting in there. And now we can put our little metal clips. There's 4 of them. We have to put those in before we can put the gong rods in. So this is what I got. And the half hour. And back to the hour. So we have to take the movement out again, because as you heard, this sounded a little bit dorky. And I got to looking at my pictures. Let me get this out of here. I got to looking at my pictures and I messed up on these rods. This rod here needs to go down here, and this pair of rods needs to go up here. I messed up, and what the problem is, this single rod here, it's supposed to be down here, and this double rod here is supposed to be up where the single rod is. And so that's why it sounds like it's ringing backwards. So let me take this apart again and switch those and see how it sounds. So tell me if this sounds better. I think so. Pay attention to your pictures. So I have it there ticking away. Now let's see how long it's going to run. So my clock's been ticking away, and then it would stop. And the only thing I can come up with now at the moment, I'm going to take that movement back out, but I think I got the springs on the hammers too tight because it doesn't like to gong, and so I got to play with that. And also, I don't think there's a bushing problem. Not sure what it was or still is, but I'm going to take a look at the movement a little bit closer and see if there's something else I missed. So this is where I felt I messed up, because when I was setting this, it didn't act like it had any spring, and I know these rest on opposite posts. But let's see if I can get this figured out. That one seemed to be extreme, and originally I didn't think it was. I can get a hold of it. Let's use this one. Now let me put that hand back on it so I can turn it, and I'll try to operate with my finger, try to turn that and see how well it moves, or see if it's supposedly easier to move. It's difficult because of where it sits. All they need to do is get it started. There, that warning pin went. To me, that doesn't feel too difficult. And it is springing nicely, so why back then when I set this up there didn't seem to be enough to get the gong or the hammers even move, I don't know. So now I'm going to take a look inside here, see if possibly where the time side, when it triggers, whether I need to put a little bit of grease on the triggering point or what, I don't know. Originally, I didn't think this clock had a problem when it came to the gong because of where the minute hand stopped. The minute hand would stop willy-nilly on wherever it decided it wanted to stop. It wasn't anywhere special. But that was before I tore this apart and put it back together again. And so now I just need to look at if I need some extra lubricant somewhere. So only triggering point I can find is on the front here on that star wheel down below. And while I'm turning the hand, it doesn't feel like, of course, any little friction sometimes will bother a clock, but it doesn't feel like there's any difference in turning this and having that here lift up. Say normally the clock will stop clear over here. It can stop over here, which so far I haven't found the odd stopping like right here. And oops. So the warning pin's set. So that's a half hour. What I'm kind of thinking is adjusting this more so it doesn't pull back as far, which I can do that. So the first hit, you see how far back this goes? So possibly adjust it so it doesn't have to come back as far, because you've heard how loud it is now, and it used to be a softer gong when it did do its gong sound. So let me adjust these and maybe stick it back in the clock and see what we have. So now I have it adjusted, and it sounds like it did before I ever started working on it. So now to put the weights back on here and see how long it runs now. And I did want to mention, just in case I forgot to video it or anything else, I was looking for a friction point as the minute hand went around. The only thing that was there was the star wheel, the 2-point star wheel that have this thing gong either on the half hour or the hour. It went very smooth, so I'm not even sure. Maybe it was, since I put the new pivots in, maybe it was because I messed up on the springs on the tension for the hammers. And so since I reset how strong the hammers would hit the gong, that clock's been running great, chiming like it's supposed to, everything else, so I'm totally happy with that clock. Don't forget to subscribe because it's free. And until next time, God bless. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Later.